Extreme Golf. Zion Williamson set to make his long-awaited NBA debut tonight, 9:30 Eastern on ESPN against the San Antonio Spurs. Williamson will not be on a strict minutes restriction in his debut. He will reportedly also be in the starting lineup. Remember, Zion had surgery on October 21st to repair a meniscus in his right knee. The original timetable was set at 6 to 8 weeks, but Wednesday will mark nearly 13 and a half weeks since surgery. He said, quote, "There's lots of times when I wanted to punch a wall or kick a chair because it's that frustrating. Pray for the wall and the chair." In Major League Baseball, Derek Jeter just narrowly misses a unanimous Hall of Fame election by 1 vote. Derek Jeter and Larry Walker will make up the class of 2020 elected yesterday. Jeter fell 1 vote shy of joining his teammate Mariano Rivera in consecutive years, being unanimous votes. His 99.7% of the vote is now second all-time. Ken Griffey Jr.'s 99.3% moves into third. Walker appeared on 304 ballots, 6 above the 75% threshold needed in his 10th and final appearance on the Baseball Writers Association ballot. Jeter and Walker will be inducted in July 26 in Cooperstown along with Ted Simmons and former Players Association head Marvin Miller, who were voted in last month by the Hall's Modern Era Committee. And in the NFL this week, just in case you were missing it already, the Pro Bowl going to do some interesting things this weekend, experimenting with an alternative kickoff for onside kicks. As in the past years, there will be no kickoffs in the Pro Bowl. The twist this year is that teams are going to have 2 options after scoring. The first option is to give the ball back to their opponents, who would start the drive at the 25-yard line. The new second option for the scoring team would serve as a substitute for an onside kick. It would allow it to run 1 additional play from its own 25-yard line. If the scoring team gains 15 or more yards, it would retain possession. If it falls short, their opponents would take over at the dead ball spot. Little make it, take it. And that is what's trending, brought to you by Parsons Extreme Golf. Nobody makes golf clubs the way we do, period.
All right, Golic and Wingo here with you, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Mike Golic Jr., Trey Wingo here. Mike Golic Sr. in the studio in Cleveland as he's hosting the Cleveland Sports Awards tonight. So there's a lot to get to as we still have that. We're in the week before we get to the place where we want to be, counting down to Super Bowl 54 next week. We're very excited about that. But a couple of nuggets there that you threw in, which I'm really excited about. And the idea of basically replacing the onside kick with the chance to gain 15 yards and keep possession. The Alliance of Football tried that. Rest in power, Alliance of Football. We miss you already. The XFL is coming in February. We're excited about that. But I love that idea, right? They tried that once, and I think there was 1 successful time when it went. I love the concept, though.
I love the concept of another offensive play for a play that the rules, understandably, because of player safety, have looked at and tried to say, we can eliminate some unnecessary, they believe, collisions in that area, but you've made it really difficult. We hardly ever see successful onside kicks anymore, so why not give a play a chance that's got a little more chance of actually succeeding, of actually accomplishing what we want, which is keeping teams alive in the game. What a perfect setting for it in the Pro Bowl.
And Junior, you're an offensive player. You liked it. I love offense. I know, Senior, you love defense. Do you like this rule?
Yeah, I have no problem with this rule. I mean, again, they got to go 15 yards. If I'm on defense, I can just say, listen, I can stop someone from going 15 yards unless, of course, it's Pat Mahomes, and then you may have more trouble doing that. So I really don't mind the make it, take it, because the defense, it's an advantage to the defense, which it should be. They should have the advantage in this of making him go 3rd and long. So I do love it because the onside kick of where you have to line up now and when you can go is impossible, almost impossible in the NFL. You definitely see more in college. They still kind of do it the other way. You just don't see it. The onside kicks, they don't do them, which still stuns me. I am quite amazed that kickers don't onside kick the ball better with the new rules, taking them into consideration, finding another way to make it a little more competitive, because right now they're not. So I have no problem with them doing this at all. I'm really interested, because I know we talk a lot about the kickoff and the collisions. I'm interested in the XFL and their kickoff. It's very difficult for me to explain, but just know where the receiving team front line lines up and the kickoff team lines up. Now put them all on the receiving team's 30 and 35-yard line. That's where everybody's going to line up, save for the kicker. The kicker's going to kick the ball. Nobody in those 2 lines can move until the receiver catches the ball. That's going to be real interesting. Again, it's all about not creating these monster collisions, but still having some sort of return play. I'm really interested to see how that one turns out.
Yeah, my only thing is don't throw the flag on a ticky-tacky PI on that play. Make them earn it. If it's going to be a PI, like, make them earn it, right? Don't be, oh, there's that because that would ruin the whole thing of the rule. If you're just going to throw something down there to get a PI.
Yep,
call.
exactly. So that one will be interesting to see. I'm with Dad on the XFL as well, just because with the kickoff, and I was talking to this about someone with this the other day, I understand the safety concerns. It is a very dangerous play. They've changed a lot of the rules where we hardly see big returns anymore in the NFL because you can't wedge or even get guys close to double teaming on the back end of those plays. So you've got guys with a 40-yard head start trying to be blocked down to the end of that play. It's just not realistic. So will this create more opportunities there while still allowing these guys to go out and earn a living on special teams? Like we talk about the Matthew Slaters of the world who are these perennial Pro Bowlers at special teams and do it for years, but special teams is a way for a lot of guys to play for 3 or 4 years, make $500,000 for a year, and change their lives and get a great head start on everything else. And I certainly don't want to remove that opportunity from a lot of guys. So I think that's a really interesting development.
So that's one thing. And then the reports began to come out last night of what the draft is going to look like. And let me just say, I am very excited. For those that may have forgotten, the draft is going to Las Vegas this year after being in Vegas last year in Nashville. And the setup in Nashville was so incredible because they closed up, Broadway? And because everything funneled down to a place called Rock Bottom down there. So there was this basically place where you could funnel everybody down into one spot. And the draft is going to be April 23rd through 25th on ESPN and ESPN2 and ABC. And so they're going to close the Strip. By the way, they almost never close the Strip.
I was going to say pretty much just for the marathon out there when it comes by and very select other instances. So this is kind of a big deal.
Yeah, and the way they've got it set up, there were some drawings out there and people thought that was the draft stage. No, they have the red carpet set up, which is going to be in the fountains at the Bellagio. And they're actually going to have the players on boats walk over or get there so they can walk down and walk across the red carpet, which will be in front of the fountains at the Bellagio. But the actual stage set up for the draft is going to be next door at Caesar's Palace. This is going to be incredible. I mean, I'm really excited about this. And the best prop bet going is if you have some of those guys that are going to be flashing some of those suits that they wear to walk down the red carpet and they're on the boat, is somebody going to fall in the water? Is somebody actually going to take the tumble and fall into the fountain? I mean, that's got to be the ultimate prop bet for the draft this year, right, big man?
Oh, without question, because you know those guys are going to be absolutely decked out. And you guys are right. This is like the marathon and New Year's Eve is when they shut this thing down. And I know you alluded to it earlier, Trey. In Nashville, all the bachelorette parties that got ticked off because all of a sudden this place was packed. Man, there are going to be a lot of angry people that are not going to be able to be driving on the Strip when it's there. And isn't it amazing? Because we remember it like yesterday when Tony Romo was playing and the NFL stopped him from doing a fantasy draft, not even in a casino, but by a casino, because it was in Las Vegas. Now we have a team in Las Vegas, a stadium in Las Vegas, the draft is in Las Vegas. It's amazing how it changes, and all of a sudden some money's coming in the coffers, isn't it?
And that was the most shocking part about why they were hesitant about it to begin with in all this, is because the NFL, this money-making power bomb of a league, somehow didn't look at this and see it for what it was. Again, people who are so concerned with profit margin saying, wait a minute, there are fistfuls of cash lying around in this whole gambling deal if we just play this the right way. And now they're starting to, and now they're doing, when we said we had a team moving to Vegas, I said, lean into it, man.
Yeah.
Let's really make this stadium feel like Vegas home and all this one. Seeing the mock-ups of this draft stage feels like Vegas home.
It's going to be fantastic. So listen, again, there was that bachelorette party fiasco where people didn't know the draft was coming. And I'm like, it's not like they snuck up on you. So I'm telling you, to gamblers and vacationers, do your research. Look up where you're going to be April 23rd to 25th and see whether or not the things you want to do will be available to you, because it's out there for public consumption. And if you don't prepare yourself, what do we always say? Failing to prepare is preparing to fail. So do your due diligence on this.
The difference is, and I know Nashville, I think they've measured this, has become the most popular destination for bachelorette parties and all this. Vegas seems like the other way, a very popular destination for bachelor parties and are usually a lot of times, and I know because I've done this, build it around the opening weekend in March Madness out there when guys will go on that Friday when there's games every a couple of minutes and you can sit at a sports book and have a great time with that. I'd have to imagine that since we have planned this, there have been a fair amount of bachelor parties that have probably said, let's go out for the NFL draft.
Right.
So this might be an instance where it is a celebration of that coinciding with what you'd normally be doing and maybe not catching people off guard like it did in Nashville.
The hilarity of everybody being upset about with the NFL. Yes, it was out there for 3 years that the draft was coming to Nashville. So, I mean, just do your due diligence, man. That's all I'm saying. Be prepared. And again, they only shut down the Strip usually on New Year's Eve and for the city's marathon. So this is going to be really, really incredible. We're going to have that giant gathering spot like we did at Rock Bottom in Nashville, and we cannot wait. April 23rd to 25th.
Doing our show out there. It may be at the crack of dawn, but the blackjack tables are still open at that time of day, so we are in business.
Boom.
I believe the phrase is, it's going to be lit there, and we are all for it. Coming up next, how lit is a former teammate of Derek Jeter's that he fell one vote shy of unanimous induction into the Hall of Fame? We'll talk to someone who, according to Aaron Buster Olney, true Yankee about that. We'll get to that after this.
And a block to finish. And DeSouza blocks it, and now the bench is empty. Just unnecessary.
Yep. That's not good. This is bad.
Oh, this is bad.
This is
No good. Oh, this is terrible.
There are going to be ramifications for this going forward.
And it's just no point to it.
So bad. Not good. The opposite of bad. John Shambi, Fran Fischilla on ESPN2 with the call last night in the Big 12 where it was quite a scene at the end of, again, had no idea it was called the Sunflower Showdown between Kansas and Kansas State. The Jayhawks win 81-60. But none of us are really going to care about that. It's all about the brawl that spilled into the stands as the game ended there, involving Kansas's Silvio De Sousa and a number of others in this. We will wait to see the fallout from this, as we are sure that suspensions are imminent. Meanwhile, in Major League Baseball, two new names will be enshrined in Cooperstown this summer, as Derek Jeter and Larry Walker were both voted into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame on Tuesday. It was Jeter's first year on the ballot. He missed becoming the second unanimous selection, would be in as many seasons, and joining his teammate Mariano Rivera by a single vote. The internet still hunts for the voter. And in the NBA, fans around the world rejoice tonight as the first overall pick, Zion Williamson, is set to make his debut for the Pelicans against the San Antonio Spurs. Remember, Williamson had knee surgery in October after averaging over 23 points on 71% shooting in the preseason and has been sidelined for 13 and a half weeks ever since. That is SportsCenter, brought to you by Nature Valley. The satisfying crunch of Nature Valley Crunchy Bars can keep your family going, which means more outside fun for you. And with the whole grain oats and real delicious honey, it's really tasty too. Nature Valley Oats and Honey Crunchy Bars.
It is hard to get 397 people to agree on anything, but 396 people did.
If the one person intentionally not vote for Derek Jeter, if I am that person, I've already come forward.
I don't understand it. There is absolutely no reason not to vote for Derek Jeter.
At the end of the day, does it really matter? No.
There's nothing that Derek Jeter did that would not make him a Hall of Famer.
All right, Golic and Wingo here with you. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. Our phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, including our next guest, five-time World Series champion, five-time All-Star, just absolutely intense as intense comes, and one of the great teammates that everybody talks about, and someone who has a lot of time spent with a guy who just got into the Hall of Fame and missed being a unanimous Hall of Famer, the second ever, by one vote. We're delighted to be joined now by Paul O'Neill, who joins us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Paul, thanks for being with us. We appreciate your time this morning. First and foremost, when you heard that Derek Jeter came up one vote short of joining Mariano Rivera as being the only two unanimous Hall of Fame selections, what went through your mind?
I mean, I was a little surprised. I think, obviously, that Mariano kind of broke that mold that they were going to get away from it. But, you know, in hindsight, does it really matter? Probably not. It was no shock. Jeter was going to be a Hall of Famer. But when you start splitting hairs and have that many votes and have one person, you would love to hear the reasoning behind it, obviously.
Talking to Paul O'Neill with us, and I think we all agree hearing the explanation would be interesting for this, but as you mentioned, still a Hall of Famer, like still got well over that threshold, and I'm curious as a teammate, we at the outside world hear so much about the folklore around Derek Jeter and the postseason exploits and the dating life and all these things. For you as a teammate, who was Derek Jeter and why was he a Hall of Famer in your eyes?
Well, I mean, he evolved, obviously. He was a young kid that was, given the job in '96 with a little question mark in everybody's mind. I mean, is he ready? And it didn't take long, to see and to figure out, he was going to have a phenomenal career ahead of him. Was he going to be, 20 years in the major leagues and one of the better players and, a Hall of Famer? Nobody knew that. But you knew that he was not overwhelmed at all by popularity and the situations, big situations, and always seemed to perform. You wanted him as a teammate in that big position because he was good at it.
It seemed like he was good at everything. There's no question about it. And listen, they called him the captain. He was the captain for a reason. Outside of the numbers, we can see that. I mean, my God, his postseason career was essentially a regular season in which he had 200-plus hits, had a 300 batting average. As a teammate, as someone who was the captain, as someone who was his responsibility to get people going, what can you tell us about that guy that we don't know?
I mean, he was not the kind of guy that was going to call meetings and rah-rah and, we got to do this. But, just his presence and the way he played, the way he showed up, and just you could always, as a player, kind of see guys that were nervous. They would act like they weren't, and they would laugh, and like this isn't that big a deal. But you actually believed it when you looked at Jeter because that's who his personality was. He had a ton of confidence in himself. And a big desire to win. I mean, he was there for one reason, and I think that's why the New York people took to him so quickly.
Yeah, there's one of the things that I love about that. One of the stories you hear so much about him is when you guys were playing the World Series against the Diamondbacks, and you were down late, and he said that infamous line, "Hey, don't worry, the ghost in this place will wake up eventually." And then, of course, we had those home runs to send that game into extra innings, and you went on to win it.
Yeah, that's right after he had told the president not to bounce it. They'll boo him.
That's exactly right.
Who's got the guts to do these things and still get away with it with, a smile on his face? Well, he had a knack for that, and his ability to deal with the media and the popularity of New York. And during those years, that takes a lot of focus, and he definitely had that.
Talking to Paul O'Neill with us, World Series champion on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, the Hall of Fame. Larry Walker, the other name involved in that. As far as him getting over in his last and 10th year on the ballot, getting over that threshold by 6 votes, did you think in all of this the criticism of where he played for so much of his career was a little bit unfounded?
Well, I think a lot of times, guys are held responsible. I mean, you are where you are. I mean, in this day and age, you can move around a lot. Back then, a lot of times, you stayed with an organization, and he was with organizations that he was comfortable playing and had a chance to win, but didn't win World Series. But it's not the player's fault always. I mean, I know a lot of guys that were unbelievable players. Don Mattingly comes to my mind. Got to play with the New York Yankees, but had one opportunity in the playoffs. Is that his fault? No, it just was the timing was wrong. So there's great players that don't always end up on great teams.
Paul O'Neill with us this morning talking about the induction into the Hall of Fame of his former teammate Derek Jeter and also Larry Walker, very well deserved. But, Paul, that's one of the stories we've had around Major League Baseball over the last couple of weeks. And as we like to say here, baseball Twitter went blackout drunk last week with all the conspiracy theories about what did and didn't go on with the Houston Astros. We know that they stole signs. We know that they cheated. We know Major League Baseball has suspended them for that. We also know Major League Baseball is looking into the Boston Red Sox, and we expect ramifications to come to that team as well. As a guy who played in this league for a long time and was around a lot of things, including a lot of guys that used steroids in your era, what do you make of what we've seen and what should be the fallout from what's gone on in Houston?
Well, I think they're doing a good job because they're getting to the bottom of it. Obviously when you steal a sign on the field as a player, that's kind of gamesmanship if you're not good enough to, change signs. But when you're doing it electronically and at home, it gives you such an advantage. Obviously disappointed because, from afar, kind of a big fan of these teams and the talent on them. But when you hear stories like this, to say that it really doesn't mean that much. Yeah, it does mean. It's a huge advantage knowing what pitch and location as a hitter. Does it give you a 100% chance? No, but it does give you a much better chance at being able to put a good swing on a pitch when you know what's coming.
Yeah, we've heard a bunch of pitchers say, I'd rather face a guy completely juiced up than a guy who knows what's coming. Major League Baseball did not choose to punish the players in this. Where are you as a player on that process?
Well, again, I think that the players are going to be punished by the media and by the fans. You hate to see some of the big name players be taken out of the game, but what has happened? I mean, A.J. Hinch, probably one of the best young managers to come around in a long time, possibly a future Hall of Famer as a manager. He's out of the game right now. Will he come back? We'll see. But so there has been some fallout. There's no doubt, and I don't think it's over. I mean, the more you dig, if it becomes a bigger story, then MLB is going to get to the bottom of it because history and numbers are such a big part of baseball. You hate to see them kind of skewed by something like this.
Talking to Paul O'Neill with us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. You just mentioned there potentially future Hall of Famers involved in this process. We have seen what the Baseball Writers Association is doing to Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, just over 60% of the vote this year, not looking good for their Hall of Fame candidacy. Do you think if this goes forward the way it has, that the baseball writers and the Hall of Fame will hold the players involved in this and the managers involved in this in a similar place?
Well, they have been very strict on what they've done through those. I mean, when I look at Clemens and Bonds, they, even though I played against them and on the same team with Rocket, they are so far ahead on a pedestal as a player of my generation. You just looked across and they're flat out better than I am. That's just the way it is. And they, at this point, are not going to be part of the Hall of Fame, which is a shame because during the time that I was on the field, those were two of the most premier players that ever played. So will it ever change? We don't know. But I don't know that this is going to be much different. I think that the baseball writers are very strict at what they look at as clean baseball.
Yeah, it is a shame because the Hall of Fame is a history of the game, and you cannot tell the history of baseball without those two guys being a part of it. So we'll see what happens going forward there. Paul, we appreciate the time this morning, and thoughts and prayers on what's going to be a long season with you having to deal with Michael Kay. So, just hang in there, all right? The struggle is real. As someone that works with him every week, I know what you're going through.
Man, I'm trying to enjoy every day. It gets here really quick.
Thanks, Paul.
All right, Paul, appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
You guys have a great one. Bye-bye.
All right, he's the best.
It is interesting he mentions those guys being so far and away the best. And Dad talked about this the other day. Steroids so often creep in for the guys that are borderline.
Yeah.
For the guys that are just trying to stick around and eke out a living and make this their career for a little while. You look at it in this instance, and if you're really voting on it and the effect it had, and people just say, well, you cheated, so you're not getting in, these guys cheated so and they were the best ever.
Right.
By any account, these guys were still Hall of Famers without any of that. So that might even be the most frustrating part is this wasn't a guy, this wasn't Larry Walker getting in on the last ballot just over the hump in this one, being a borderline Hall of Famer. These were guys that were already going to be there anyway. So you look at it and say, we're going to leave these guys out. It's not like they needed it to get over the hump.
Yeah, had Barry Bonds never introduced himself to any sort of foreign substance, you could make the argument he was one of the top 5 players in the history of the game. So that part of it has to go into consideration as well. All right, coming up, we got the Pro Bowl this weekend on ABC and ESPN, and then we've got the Super Bowl. But after that, we'll have the greatest quarterback offseason we've ever seen, and we're going to bring the big men back, and we're going to get things ranked. My top 3-ish free agent potential quarterbacks. We'll get to that after this.
After this word from Straight Talk, it is time for some Straight Talk. The big wireless carriers try and wow you with big deals, but the savings are very little. With Straight Talk Wireless, you get the exact same networks as the big guys, but saving up to half the cost. Right now, you can get the unlimited plan with up to 25 gigs of high-speed data, then 2G for just $45 a month. No contract, no mystery fees, all with nationwide coverage on America's largest, most dependable 4G LTE networks. Straight Talk Wireless, only at Walmart.